there were approximately, I'm going to think the figure was like 1,300 shows with carnivals in North America.
That was when?
This would have been up until, I'm going to say, until about the end of the 1950s.
For the past 6.5 decades, Ward Hall has been a prominent figure as a sideshow front talker and owner on scores of circus and carnival midways throughout North America. The King of the American Sideshow also has been a perennial attraction at conventions of the Circus Fans Association of America and the Circus Historical Society, like this one in Peru, Indiana, in mid-2013. On the last night of that meeting, Ward took time out to reminisce about his earliest carnival sideshow experiences with his first partner, the late Harry Leonard.
The first carnival sideshow I had was in 1948. And at that time, there were, according to my inaccurate research, there were 104 10-in-1 sideshows touring in the United States and Canada with circuses and carnivals. And with the carnivals, there were probably at that time, I'm going to say maybe 10, 15 independent sideshows where they were owned by the operator. And the other 100 or more were owned by the carnivals themselves. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about the equipment. They owned the banner line, they owned, in most cases, the banners, although sometimes you used your own. They furnished the tent and the truck to haul it, and they transported it. The first sideshow I had was a ghillie sideshow, and I say that in this respect. We had, when first of all, I left Rogers Brothers Circus at Apollo, Pennsylvania in early June and jumped to Leavenworth, Kansas to join Freer's United shows, Ma and Pa Freer. They had a cookhouse, and I knew about them, had met them, because when I was a little boy, they played my hometown at the local celebration every year with their cookhouse.
Where was that?
In Trenton, Nebraska. Right. And then in 1948, I needed a place to go. And there was an ad in the billboard, want sideshow operator for brand new sideshow equipment, Freer's United shows. Okay. And I left from Rogers Brothers and went to Leavenworth, Kansas. Right. And when we got there, they had the sideshow all up in the air. And everything about it was brand spanking new, except the iron stakes that was holding up the tent. And it was a beautiful little show. We had a 100-foot front and 20 by 80 foot tent. And so we took it over. The problem was, of course, I knew nothing about carnivals. And I did not know, of course, that at that time that you never go to Kansas with a sideshow except to the State Fair at Hutchinson, which we play now every year. And so I didn't have a lot of show to start with, but I found some people and so on, and we ended up with a pretty nice little show, and it was certainly a nice carnival to be around. It was real nice people. And but it was, I call it a ghillie show because we didn't have one truck to load that sideshow in. We loaded all of our props and had to have trunks and crates to put them in because they went in the light plant. Well, they didn't have a light plant, it was a transformer wagon. And so all of that went in that wagon. And then they had what they called the lumber truck, and they had 6 shows that they owned. And the 6 shows were all banner line shows. But to make sure that we would have plenty of time, that we could be the first ones off and to put up, that meant we had to be the last ones to load up. So many times we would have to stay up all night until early the next morning for everybody else to be loaded so we could put our lumber, the banner line, the tent poles and so on, platforms, on the top of the load. And then the tent itself was 2 middle pieces and the 2 ends. So there were 4 bundles plus 2 bundles of sidewall, and we had to carry them from the back end of the midway where the sideshow location would be, clear down, because it loaded in with the front gate wagon. And so it made the up and down a little more difficult.
Now, was this you and Harry?
Well, we started with just me and Harry, yes.
Right.
And then we added some people as we went along. And the business was not good because, like I said, Kansas is not a good sideshow state. And I about the second spot out, and I don't remember where it was, but I'd hired a ballet girl, beautiful girl, and so she'd make the ballet, and Harry and I was doing the whole show at that time. I was eating fire, juggling, doing the sword ladder, and standing for the knives, and Harry was throwing the knives at me and doing Punch and Judy and doing magic and working the blade box with this girl. And then shortly after that, we got 2 drag queens that came out of Ohio, Georgie Searles, who became Diane D. Elgar, the hermaphrodite, and another guy that became Lady Cassandra. And so then I put this ballet girl into the ticket box. And everything was fine, but I noticed the first night the money didn't look right. So we were being sponsored by some local committee. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a local, lodge or something of some kind. And they sent me a ticket taker. And then I noticed that this ticket taker was saying to her, "Oh, do you have a match?" And he'd want to light a cigarette. And she'd pass him a box of matches. And he'd light his cigarette, and then she'd be busy selling tickets or something, but then he'd pass the ticket, the box back to her. So I intercepted the box, and of course they were rehashing tickets. And so I don't think I fired her, I just took her off of the ticket box. And this was midweek. And we were somewhere in northern Kansas, so it wasn't that far to Trenton, Nebraska. And I called my father and gave him a job, and he came on the show and was the ticket seller. I didn't have to worry about him stealing from me. And but then an occasion happened that the only event we had that year that was pretty good money for us for those years. We were going for 25 cents and I think 10 cents for kids. And we played the Iowa Championship Rodeo at Sidney, Iowa. And they drew a lot of people, and so we were doing pretty good business. And on this one day, it was probably a Friday night or Saturday, and I never, my father had the money and he was selling the tickets, so I never bothered to clean the ticket box because I was doing so much else. And so he had all the money, and he was anxious to get to the cookhouse and get something to eat because I hadn't let him off the ticket box all day. And it was late at night, and so he went down to the blade box stage and he's counting the money and separating it out. And the blow-off, the half and half, was still working. And so there were people in there. So I come back, I put something away, and I come back in the tent. My father was gone. He went to the cookhouse and left all the money laying on the blade box stage, $500 and some. And I thought, oh my God. Well, the people had come out of the blow-off, but they came out and went right out the door. Nobody came down to that end or happened to see something out there, And so I didn't lose anything.
So the people in Kansas, if nothing else, were pretty honest.
They were honest. So what I did do, I fired my father, ran him off the show, and had somebody else to put in the ticket box. And other than that, it was a rather uneventful season. It was a hard season. I didn't weigh a lot to begin with. I worked so hard, I lost a few pounds on the route, and we didn't make any money. We closed the season with them. They closed in mid-September in, oh God, I can't think of the name of the town. Was Bud Anderson's hometown of winter quarters with the circus.
Okay.
But anyway.
Oh, Emporia?
Emporia, yeah. Played the little fair there, and that was the end of the season. And I don't think, Harry and I might have ended up with $500 or $600 in our pockets. So we had already called Milt Robbins and were to rejoin the Daily Show.
In part 2 of this series, Ward Hall lingers over the smells from the carnival cookhouse and looks under the wrestling show ring at the claustrophobic sleeping quarters of the nightly combatants. Reporting from Peru, Indiana, I'm Lane Talbert. See you down the road.